got Colston Loveland here, the second tight end in the class. We didn't really talk much about Tyler Warren, but I like Tyler Warren. He really reminds me of Tucker Kraft in a lot of ways. Um, Colston Loveland, Jalen Royals, who I really like. Alec Manor, Ollie Gordon, Isaiah Bond, and Cam Scatabo. So talk to me. What do you want? What do you see in this tier? Because we really don't disagree on much.
Yeah, so quickly to touch on the tight ends, I think pause. Um, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland currently both expected to be first round picks. And I know I said I do try and not factor that in as much, but that to me is going to continue to pick up steam. And whether or not Colston Loveland is a first round pick, it seems that he is currently, it's going to be between him and Harold Fannin to be the second tight end off the board. All steam is pointing towards Colston Loveland. And he's a guy you really got to kind of, like Roman Wilson last year, you got to put a little bit of an asterisk next to the box score stats because Michigan's passing offense didn't get any better this year. It seems to just kind of be an identity that they have. They're not a team that's going to really break through the air. But what do tight ends have to do successfully in the NFL to stay on the field? Most of them. They got to block. And Colston Loveland is definitely very well versed into that side of things, being a Michigan man dedicated to the run game. So he has that. He has the athletic profile that you would look for in a tight end. Obviously, tight ends don't have to be uber athletic. They just need to be, relatively athletic. And Colston Loveland has that. So we're kind of looking at like maybe two Ben Sinnotts, honestly. So, like mid to high second round picks that are probably in rookie drafts that were selected in the first or second round of the NFL draft. So I do like Colston Loveland enough to kind of keep him in the top 20 here. By itself, he's a perfect example of not being able to take box score stats as gospel in college football. Jalen Royals, you can touch on Jalen Royals if you would like to. I'll save that for you as you're the resident Jalen Royals truther. Cam Scatabo, he did enough to earn his keep here, and I think it's partially because we've talked about RB athletic profiles, and you got to really beware. It is very, very good to have a Genty who is 5'11", 215, runs a 4.4, 4.5 Like that's awesome. If you have that, that is a huge plus. But take a look at guys like Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, who very effective NFL backs, not good athletic profiles whatsoever. The RB position, because even Josh Jacobs, right? Like he's not running a 4.4 40, but that man can hit 21 miles per hour in the open field. So can Cam Scatabo. I did this training program a while back when I was a kid growing up, and part of the thing the achievement you tried to hit was maintaining 21 miles per hour on a treadmill for 6 seconds. And I was capable of doing that at the age of 15, I think it was, and I'm not athletic. So if I'm capable of hitting 21 miles per hour and sustaining it on a treadmill of 6 seconds, I promise you, Cam Scatabo has enough speed to break past NFL defenses. Like I promise you, even if it comes up with a 4.6, like it's fine. If a team, and what we saw out of this playoff run by Arizona State, we know a team is going to fall in love with him based off of that. Not just his grittiness, like his attitude, his grittiness. Like those are all things that NFL teams are going to love. I'm sure his dog factor would be rated pretty highly on Cody Carpenter's scale. We had to take notice. He wasn't in our initial rankings, but, we saw what he put out there. We can project what he's capable of given that skill set. So I really like Scatabo. And then Isaiah Bond, I keep dropping lower and lower in my rankings. You just can't convince me. I start to not like the prospects as much outside of the top 24. I have a feeling that'll change once I start to get to know these guys a little bit better. Senior Bowl testing, all that stuff is going to come out. Why couldn't Isaiah Bond get more than 500 or 600 receiving yards in a single season at Alabama and Texas? That's just he's the number one receiver at Texas and couldn't get over 600 yards. That's a huge, huge red flag. I know he was hurt. He was
Yeah.
playing through an ankle injury, so that's going to make things a little bit tougher to evaluate because he gets pushed down the Alabama depth chart. Naturally, Alabama's talent rich organization. He goes to Texas. This should be his breakout year. It would have looked a lot better on his resume if he just sat with his ankle injury. We could at least say that he wasn't capable of playing, but he played through it and he looked terrible. So it's going to be really hard to determine what Isaiah Bond's true skill level is. And in my opinion, we're almost going to have to rely exclusively on what an NFL team thinks about him. And even then, like we look at Keon Coleman, and like Keon Coleman going into the draft class or the draft, and Buffalo put their stamp of approval on it. And I wasn't buying it really. And so that feels like where it's going to be with Isaiah Bond, where even if a team puts that stamp on him, I still don't know if it's going to be enough for me to come around.
Well, I think there's a player, and the reason he's not going to be in these, I'll just spoil it for everybody. I think he might have had a Matthew Golden problem, and because Matthew Golden really this year almost 1,000 receiving yards, 987 receiving yards in 16 games.
I should say he was
touchdowns.
supposed to be the receiver one. He wasn't.
Yeah, and Matthew Golden is not getting somebody who's in our top 36 right now. He's somebody who's just climbing everybody's board, and so I'm sure there's going to be somebody in the chat going, "Why don't you have Matthew Golden?" Well, haven't had the time to really dig into Matthew Golden yet, but I'm sure he will be on this list at some point. Probably in this range, honestly. Like I'm not too high, not too low on most players. Usually when there's buzz surrounding somebody, and not all the time, but whenever I start to see like this type of buzz, I don't know what it says about me, but typically I'm like, skeptical. Let's see what all the buzz is about. We've reluctantly moved up Cam Scatabo because of that, and we've realized, okay, this guy, I think he can play, but I think we still have him at a responsible point in these rankings, because likely he's going to be a day 3 pick. And a day 3 pick, look at all the day 3 picks and I would say last year was probably a good year for day 3 picks, because you got Tyrone Tracy and Bucky Irving hitting, right? But you also had Braylon Allen, you had Isaiah Davis. I could go. I mean, I can't go on because those are the only ones that come to mind right now. But there were several other players, and the reason I can't think of them is because they didn't really impact fantasy much. So, again, this is the process we go through. And Jalen Broyles, if you want to just go look at his game log, it's like if you on a create a player in college football. I don't even know if that's a thing, but if you created a player and played with them like on easy mode, you would get statistics like 9 catches, 211 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns against Boise State, a team that was ranked 21st at the time. And this is a guy, and we've talked about it before on this channel, who wasn't recruited by anybody. Cody told us this. And he had to walk on, like he had to eventually go to Utah State, and like they used him in a plethora of ways. Like he was used, end arounds, sweeps, slants, deep routes, you name it. He's still really raw, but he's super intriguing. And like you look at him and you go, oh, well, he's not that big. Well, he's 6 feet tall, 205 pounds. That's like, I'm not comparing him to these players, but that's the same size as Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. That's the prototype.
Yep.
Alec Ayumanor, just to touch on him real briefly, I don't think we've talked at length about him. Bigger wide receiver. And if you watch the Travis Hunter all 22 breakdown on my channel, YouTube channel, which is different than this channel, you will see that Alec Ayumanor had one of the best games that anybody's had against Travis Hunter when Travis Hunter was playing cornerback. And I think there's a reason for that, and I think that reason is Alec Ayumanor's really good. And He's somebody that I've raised up in the process. He's firmly in round 2, middle to late round 2. He's easily somebody I would consider in a single quarterback league early round 2. If a lot of the options, like if Brashard Smith, Devin Neal, Restrepo, Sampson, if they're all gone, and I'm a wide receiver needy team, I would have no problem pulling the trigger on IU Manor there.